Who is Jesus? It should come as no surprise that the Bible is not the only historical source that substantiates the existence of Jesus. Non-biblical and non-Christian sources alike confirm that Jesus did exist as a historical person. A non-Christian Jewish historian by the name of Josephus, writing toward the end of the first century, identifies Jesus as a wise man, a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of men who receive the truth with pleasure. Clearly, this non-Christian Jewish historian recognized and documented the existence of Jesus as a historical person who had profound impact upon those he encountered. Another source, a Roman historian by the name of Tacitus, writes in his account of the fire that burned Rome in the year 64 that Christ had undergone the death penalty in the reign of Tiberius by sentence of Pontius Pilate, and that Christianity was checked for a moment, only to break out once more not merely in Judea, but in the capital of Rome. Another source, a governor of one of the Roman provinces named Pliny the Younger, wrote about Jesus in letters to the Emperor Trajan, seeking advice on what he should do about the Christians. Those are just a few of the non-biblical and non-Christian sources attesting to the person of Jesus. Now, from biblical sources in particular, as found in chapter 1 of the disciple John's account, we are told that Jesus was with God in the beginning, and that through him all things were made. The disciple John goes on to record that Jesus, who was with God in the beginning, became flesh and made his dwelling among us. It is important to see that the Bible teaches explicitly, without reservation, that Jesus is God, manifest in flesh, and walked amongst us. Michael Green, in his book, Who is This Jesus?, writes the following about Jesus. He was born in an obscure village, the child of a peasant woman. He grew up in still another village, where he worked in a carpenter's shop until he was 30. Then for 3 years he was an itinerant preacher. He never wrote a book. He never held an office. He never had a family or owned a house. He did not go to college. He never visited a big city. He never traveled 200 miles from the place where he was born. He did none of the things one usually associates with greatness. He had no credentials but himself. He was only 33 when the tide of public opinion turned against him. His friends ran away. He was turned over to his enemies and went through the mockery of a trial. He was nailed to a cross between 2 thieves, and while he was dying his executioners gambled for his clothing, the only property he had on earth. When he was dead, he was laid in a borrowed grave through the pity of a friend. 19 centuries have come and gone, and today he remains the central figure of the human race and the leader of mankind's progress. All the armies that ever marched, all the navies that ever sailed, all the parliaments that ever sat, all the kings that ever reigned, put together have not affected the life of man on this planet so much as that one solitary life. Well, enough about what others say about Jesus. Let's examine who Jesus himself claims to be. In his own words, recorded by his disciple John, Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep." Jesus says, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Jesus says, "If you really knew me, you would know my Father as well. Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father." Make no mistake about this. Jesus did personally claim to be God, and Jesus cannot be just another great man or prophet or teacher, as that would make him either a liar or a lunatic. This question, who is Jesus, is the question Jesus himself posed to his disciples some 2,000 years ago and continues to pose to each one of us today. The disciple Matthew records the question that Jesus asks all of us today. But what about you? Who do you say I am?